And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who loves a regatta. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And the Colonel and I are very happy today. We're back on the mainland, and we couldn't go to, well, my favorite place, Milleronia, because something happened, something good, and it has the word regatta in it. And I'm going to tell you all about it. And I am, happy. It's beautiful here. It's warm here in Southern California. And I've said this before, but I mean it every time. That music makes me feel great. And the Colonel, too. And I want to thank, of course, the Paul Krachulik Orchestra and the Deborah Carrington Dancers, featuring boy tenor Brad Simpson, asking the musical question, if the cops raid your keg party and confiscate the beverages, is that considered a beer bust? Yes, Brad. Yes, it is. That's number one. Good question. But I have to be honest with you, I'm so out of it, I didn't know what a beer bust was. And Colonel Jeff had to tell me. He knew what it was, and he's been through a couple of them. But I mean, I think at my college, I think we drank as much beer as anyone. Never heard the phrase beer bust, though. And Colonel Jeff told me that means a party that's just beer. And, God knows we had plenty of those, but we never had that phrase in any case. And I'm thinking, who in the world raids a keg party anyway? And the Colonel's been to some of those. They did all sorts of things. They'd roll a keg out into the middle of a field, he said, and they'd all sit around the keg and drink the beer. I know that part, but I mean that then the police would come and raid the party. And as he used to say, as Colonel said, as soon as they saw the cops coming into the field there, they had to get the tapping system out that went into the keg, because he said in their places in there where they got kegs, they had to pay a deposit on the equipment that goes into the keg to tap it. And I knew something about that too. I was a social master for a couple of years there in my fraternity in Western Massachusetts at Amherst College. But I'll tell you what, I didn't know that either, and I'm sorry. He said so they'd run, but first they tried like mad to get the tapper out of there so they could get their deposit back, which he said was something like $50, right? Well, they did. It's Brad, it's still a great question though, and who a beer bust? Didn't know, and now I know. And folks, I hope all of you and Brad and me and Jeff never get raided again, whatever that means. And by the way, this is a great day to give respect to those names I mentioned. Paul Krachulik sent us a couple of bucks on PayPal with the message, do me a favor, get a drink for each of you and toast your dad and someone else's dad and yourselves. And I thought that was so sweet. He was taken with a couple of episodes ago that I talked about my father and some of his stories, and boy, he's got a lot more. You'll be hearing more of those again. But thank you, Paul. It means a lot. And no one has to raid that party for it to mean a lot. And Deborah Carrington just died. She is a great actress. She was a well-known actress, and I wish her very well in her next life. She was, you might know her, and I knew this, that from Total Recall, the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and a bunch of other great folks there. And She was a dwarf and played the prostitute there in the good part of town where all the rebels were. And she was blonde as well, and she was a stunt woman also, and she had great scenes in Total Recall, and she was firing and machine guns and holding all the bad guys back. And so Deborah, God bless you. You have a great next life where you've just begun, and well, it's nice to smile at you with everyone listening. And by PayPal. That's right. Speaking of which, that you know what? PayPal is a terrific group. I'm proud to say that every time I do that. That if you work with them, you feel like you're saving the world yourself, and who knows, maybe you are. If you enjoy my show, and why wouldn't you? And you'd like to send a few bucks to help out, and why wouldn't you? You can help through PayPal. So what you do is you get to PayPal. You can get there anyway, boy. You can get through your computer, through your laptop, anything, your iPhone, your cell phone, whatever you have. You can get there all sorts of ways, but don't bother doing that. Let us take you there. What you do is go to our website. We have a banner there that says PayPal. Click that banner. We'll get you there. Click that banner and go take a nap on your lazy boy chair, and we'll get you to PayPal. And our website, of course, is Larry Miller. Just forgot it for a second there. Oh, yeah, LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the Mountain? Tom Mix. That was great. That was a good one. Colonel Jeff makes these things, and they always make me smile. And that was a good one. It sounded, frankly, like the cheer that goes up at Volcano number 2 here when we're on Milleronia. Boy, people love that. They love those volcanoes. Not to go in themselves, actually, of course. But, when we sentence someone to do that, the cheer goes up, and it sounds just like someone hit one way out of here. But in any case, click the banner for PayPal on our website. And you know what? Sure, you can. I'm not fond of phrases like donate this or pay what you like. And I like to say, buy us some drinks. And Paul Kochulik did just that. Thank you, pal. And you know what? Every little bit helps us keep the old leg lamp lit. And it means a lot. And thanks to everyone who has contributed already and is going to right now. But boy, Paul, thanks again. I'm glad you did with that nice sentiment about my dad. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. Boy, I still love that one too. And bongo drums. Why? Who knows? I love that in old cartoons where that's how the character the sound he would make when he'd get running, but not running right away. He'd kind of get his feet going and he'd go up in the air in cartoons. And I think they almost always had bongo drums with that. And then he'd go like mad. But this is a good one. This is a good joke. The Colonel and I both liked this one. In a religious school, a Catholic school, there's a nun there, and everyone liked her very much, and she taught the 4th grade. And she said one day to the class, you know what, let's find out just a little more about you, all you girls here, and just what you are, what you want. And she points to one and just says, well, what would you like to be when you grow up? And the girl says, I want to be a doctor. And the nun says, good, oh, well, that's awfully nice. You want to be a doctor? Wonderful. And she points to another and says, what about you? What do you want to be? And she says, I want to be a teacher, just like you. And that's very touching. And the nun says, oh, that's so sweet. And she points to a third one and said, and what about you? What would you like to be? And the girl says, I want to be a prostitute. And the nun just almost faints right away. She grabs her chest and that's, she's almost frantic with the reaction to that. Oh, and she spins a little, and falls to the floor in the classroom there and is out cold. And all the girls rush to her and just, tap her face and kind of ta, sister. And she comes to and says to that third little girl, oh, I'm sorry. What did you say you wanted to be again? And the girl says, a prostitute. And the nun says, oh, thank God. I thought you said you wanted to be a Protestant. We got a big kick out of that. And I hope you did too. Once again, if you did, please pass it along to someone you like, a friend or family member. And we got a kick out of that. That's something from where, from when, how far back, who knows? Those two groups had it in for each other, I guess, for quite a while. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. I think that may be the reason that guy coughs so much, brother. Paul, you ought to send him a couple of bucks. Just tell him, just get a couple of drinks and sit down and take a nap. Relax. This is a wonderful poem by the great John Keats, who was an English romantic poet and lived from 1795 to 1821. Another one of those sad events of sometimes those poets and writers in those days didn't live very long, and he was 26 years old when he died, and he was also one of the main second-generation romantic poets with Byron and Shelley, and the name that's always in there is Keats. He was not generally popular during his life, but he became very popular and beloved by the end of the 19th century. This is called On the Sea by John Keats. It keeps eternal whisperings around desolate shores, and with its mighty swell gluts twice 10,000 caverns, till the spell of Hecate leaves them their old shadowy sound. Often 'tis in such gentle temper found, that scarcely will the very smallest shell be moved for days from where it sometime fell. When last the winds of heaven were unbound, O ye who have your eyeballs vexed and tired, feast them upon the wideness of the sea. O ye whose ears are dinned with uproar rude, or fed too much with cloying melody, sit ye near some old cavern's mouth and brood, until ye start as if the sea nymphs choired. Isn't that lovely? Boy, there's a reason, Keats became so beloved. When these folks were good, a great poet is great. Boy, what they could do with words. And I hope some of you can do that too. And I think maybe Colonel Jeff and I can do that a little bit on our own here. We're certainly glad you're there to tell. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show, the magic movie moment. Oh, boy. This is a great movie, folks, and I saw this a couple of days ago. And I'd seen it many times, but not for a long while. The 10 Commandments, from 1956, directed by Cecil B. DeMille, starring, what a cast this had, starring Charlton Heston, Edward G. Robinson, Ann Baxter, Yul Brynner, John Derrick, Nina Foch, Vincent Price, Sir Cedric Hardwicke, and so many more. This because of the crowds and the slaves and the Egyptians and everyone they had there. This cast must have had 200 or 300 people in it. But those folks were great. And John Derek, by the way, who, he was a great actor, and he also passed his name on to one of his wives, whose name was Bo. That's right. He married Bo Derek. And I think that's worth pausing on there. When I see that name, I want to say, boy, great part. He played Joshua in the movie. Great work. And by the way, great work marrying Bo Derek and making her Derek. But in any case, it's a great movie, folks, and tells a story. Remember, this was made in 1956. This was before all effects were possible in movies, all visual effects and sound effects. Nothing really could happen. But they made this movie beautifully. And everything that occurred was done so well, considering, once again, it was more than 60 years ago. And that's why it took me so deeply to see again the parting of the Red Sea. And I hope you've seen this movie or know that's one of those events, biblical, obviously, but that we don't think about much. Well, did the Red Sea really part? Well, here's a quick answer. Yes, it did. And it didn't have any special effects, and they didn't have, in this great movie, oh, Lord, when Charlton Heston, as Moses, leads the people of Israel in they were let go from Egypt, but Yul Brynner, playing the second Pharaoh, Ramses II, wow, he was not someone you wanted to cross, and he was not someone who took things lightly. And he followed the Jews into the desert, where he finally got so mad, and he took his whole army with them. And that's why at that point God said, I'm going to, just go into the Red Sea. I'm going to part it for you. And when they parted it, the reason this scene also means so much to me, it looks just like you'd think it would. And Colonel Jeff told me that how they did it, well, good Lord, they had a giant tank, and they could part the water in the tank. And even just saying that, I don't even know what that means. I know what it looked like, which was very moving. And we all misuse the word awesome, that is full of awe. But I'm full of awe when I see that sea part in this wonderful movie. And see that, as Yul Brynner, what a great actor. They were all wonderful, but when Yul Brynner leads his men to follow them, to follow the Israelites into the Red Sea, you want to say, even as bad a guy as he was, great actor Yul Brynner, but as bad a character as he played, you want to say, I'm pretty sure this is a mistake. I think you want to reconsider really fast. Maybe just turn around and go back to all the palaces and all the everything, all the women, everybody. Just go back there. But he doesn't, of course. And he goes into the Red Sea, and you and I and the Israelites see and watch as God says, in effect, to Ramses, okay, tell me what you think of this. And brings the waters back from their walls and covers Ramses and all the Egyptian soldiers. And, I'm sure that's what made most of them say, so why did we follow this guy again? Why did we have to do this? Folks, it's a great movie. Whew. And Edward G. Robinson was so great, too. Anne Baxter, what a cast. And Sir Cedric Hardwicke as Seti, who played Ramses' father, who was the first pharaoh we see, and then he dies and passes everything, including the scepter, on to, Yul Brynner, and says, okay, go ahead. The Parting of the Red Sea, in a great movie, The Ten Commandments. Please see it. If you haven't, see it, folks. It's also told in such a great style, where they didn't need to make the bottom of the Red Sea mud and have flapping fish around on it. It just doesn't need that for me. And just to see them walk across it and then to be followed by the Ramses and the Egyptians. Wow. Wow and yikes. And you know what? There are certain things you do in water that are, well, not necessarily as awesome as the parting of the Red Sea, but very moving. I mentioned regatta before, and the reason that we're on the mainland now and not in Milleronia is that our second son was in a regatta a few days ago on the weekend, and he's a sculler on the crew team at his college, at his university, and they've gone all sorts of places too. They go to Kansas and they drive to these places. He and his team had a crew bus, and the coaches with everybody, and they drove, which is about a 16-hour drive to get to. They went to Long Beach first of all, and it was great. And I picked him up, and we saw him and that our plan was to get up. He could get back that night, last Friday night, and then my wife and I were going to get up early and go see the crew match. And it was terrific. It's something, that sport needs a word like regatta to me. Yes, it has a royal feeling to it. And I guess you could say a higher class feeling to it. It's not that everyone is walking around like the polo scene in Pretty Woman, and although a terrific scene that was, and a great movie. They had some really great actors in it, like, me. And you know what, though? It's not that. And the women in those dresses and hats, and men in the white pants, white shoes, and a sport coat. I keep wanting to say sport coat, but it's not that. You can see that sport jacket and the ties they wore and a straw hat or something like that. And it looks, you'd say to yourself, well, this must be some kind of polo match. But nothing is quite like a crew regatta. This was down in Southern California at Marina del Rey. And when my wife and I drove there the next day, there was one thing that was a bit annoying, by the way, and I have to say this. There are bike riders on their bicycles that go down right on next to the water there every week, and that's fine. That's great. It's a wonderful thing to do, in fact. And but a lot of them have no manners because they put up signs. The UCLA folks who are running all this put up signs just about 50, 60 feet apart that said, stop here, get off your bikes, and just walk them this next 50 feet because there's an event today, right now. It's a regatta. It's crew races. And, there are kids and parents and people from the schools, and they're almost getting wiped out. And I when I say wiped out, I mean killed. There were a bunch of folks on the bicycles. I don't know if you can use an informal word like bike, but I'm telling you, they didn't stop. They didn't get off. A few did, but very few. And I don't think they cared. And that's been supported by everyone else who was there that, no, they just don't care. And they rode by, not at top speed, but they're riding at 10, 15 miles an hour, and get off the bike for 50 feet. And if that sounds a little tough, get off the bikes. And I mean, they would come through and there are kids right there. And I mean, infants right there. And there are adults who have to grab a kid and kind of do a quick jog off the path that's right near the water. It's right next to the water. It's right next to where all the scullers load their boats into the water. And boy, they were just great. Oh, they were wonderful to watch. And yes, it's because one of my sons was there. But he was great. And I'm telling you that he was in 2 races. Oh, boy. His school won one race, a big title in varsity. And our son's crew team, which was the 8-man team, and they didn't win anything, but boy, they were great. And to watch our son really, they do that stroke, and then you turn your wrists and you pull it back the other way so it cuts through the air. They were really, really good. And it's true that, as my wife pointed out, sure, you're only seeing them for 1.7 seconds. Wherever you decide to stand, they go by, and there are 4 boats in a row next to each other. And boy, oh boy. And by the way, in Long Beach, where they first drove to and where they were staying, they practiced on the same crew water that the American team used and for the Olympics in 1932. And that was really something, folks, because they, our son was really proud of that and felt the connection. Well, that may not sound like much, but it was to us, and it was to him. And boy, these crew folks, men's teams and women's teams, and they're in really good shape. I mean, like frighteningly good shape. I mean, like Mr. Universe shape, that the guys, you see them carrying the boats, and you look at them and say, good Lord. And I mean, they're all 6'2" to 6'6", and they're all much better than just, say, Mr. Universe, which those guys are great with all the muscles. But these guys, you can see, are tough as nails. And they worked out. And the women, by the way, the women's teams just looked, well, great. I mean, let's be honest. I was telling Colonel Jeff, there were some of those women, a lot of them, where you want to say, God bless you. Good for you. I mean, they have just extraordinarily good, worked out bodies, and I'll leave it right there. I mean, there's nothing, I didn't have, when I saw the guys, I could say, well, all right, I guess they work hard. When I saw the women, I thought, well, all read us, all write us. And, but it was really, really something. Little quick observation. They had nothing to eat or drink for their fans and parents. And I mean, no big tubs of water or no bottles of water. Just, and you're there for, well, a while, 3 hours or so or more, 4 hours. And, well, you could use a bottle of water. And all the teams, all the folks on each team from each school had tables with, well, water and Gatorade or things like that, and bananas and peanut butters, and you could, make a quick, slap up a peanut butter sandwich. Well, the parents wouldn't mind one of those, I'm just saying. And my wife had to stop me. She said, where are you going? I said, I just wanted to get some water, a cup of water. And she thought, you looked at me like a traitor. She said, you can't take that. That's for the boys. Oh, all right, okay. I didn't. Well, yeah, okay. And she almost got. Parents almost get hit. They move. You got to be, well, careful. You got to watch what you're doing, because they move those boats on to load them in the water, and there, the coaches and the coxswains are, all yelling, heads up, and anyone who's not an idiot brings their heads up and gets out of the way. Because they move those things in. They're not jogging with them, but you got to take it easy. And made me think, my parents used to come see me play baseball, and everyone used to go to the football games in that time, in my time in high school. And I asked the colonel, and he said he agreed too. We didn't have anything, same sort of thing, just regular sports, baseball, football, soccer and things like that, but we didn't have anything as, well, as cool as crew. And it meant a lot to me and my wife. And how tough are they, by the way? How tough are these crew guys? Our son said he wanted to meet the toughest guy on their squad, and their nickname for him was Jack Dempsey. And do you need anything more than that to answer the question? How tough are they? That's how tough. And they're charming and with big smiles, just the finest fellas in the world. And the same with the women, I think. But I know they just looked great. And folks, this is something good to do and something good to know. It means a lot to me and my wife, and it means a lot to our son. And they'll be going to a lot more regattas. And that word is perfect for this. Not match, not competition, not game, not rally, regatta. And one of these days, if they say, you know what, dress up for this one, well, we will. My wife can get one of those pretty woman hats and a pretty woman dress. And I can, well, get a Richard Gere outfit too. And not because I was in it, but because I want to show our son and his coaches and his team and everyone else that we know what the word regatta means. And you know it too. We both do, folks. We know that Homer is Homer and Pluto is a planet. So remember, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. And that's something to remember on or off the water. Be well, and we'll see you here next time.